What we are actually seeing at the moment, and what Labour have just set in motion, something which will be incredibly good for the UK, is a massive unleashing of the green energy potential here in the UK, multiplying on and offshore wind farms, bringing in more solar power stuff, everything geared towards bringing this new renewal and green energy that we so desperately have needed for years here in the UK. We are sitting on top of huge areas where we can really put the wind, the waves, all this green energy to good use. We just have to do it. But as I said before, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, once you generate that power, you've got to get it somewhere. You've got to get that power from A to B. If you've got an offshore wind farm, then sooner or later, the cables have to come on shore. You cannot escape that reality. And in a couple of months' time, maybe even a couple of weeks' time, I think it is, we are going to see one of the largest energy infrastructure projects be built, with a stretch of pylons going all the way from Aberdeen all the way down into West Yorkshire. This will be one of the biggest energy infrastructure projects the UK has undertaken in a very, very long time. And what energy will be that transferring? We'll be transferring a lot of green energy. And here's the thing, doing this is going to upset a lot of people. But here's the thing, the industry has been undertaking huge amounts of public consultation. And just a couple of weeks ago, when we criticized the Greens co-leader, saying, oh, no, you don't understand, you need to do more public consultations. This ignores the fact that this project in particular has been carrying out consultations with public, with people along these paths where these pylons are going to be occurring for the past 6.5 years. Yeah. Oh, but we just need more consultation. This, as I've said before, is nimbyism in action. You delay as long as you can, or until you find a moment where you can hit in and either find a way to kill off the project for good, or you stop it from doing it. And you have to make them focus on elsewhere. And even if, let's say, the Greens swept to power, they too would have to deal with this as well. They have to deal with, once you generate that power, you have to then transport it to where people are. And that means having substations, pylons, poles, wires, all this massive infrastructure, incredibly visible, but also incredibly necessary. Because you cannot go and generate, I don't know, let's say you go set up a solar farm in, I don't know, North Yorkshire. You've got to then get that power to the national grid. You've got to then get it into the national grid. You've got to send it where people are, going. You've got to either send it to a city, or you've got to send it to a town, or maybe you've got to, in this case, as we said here, from, all the way from, the wind farms of Aberdeen all the way down to West Yorkshire. And not only that, that power will be going to places used in places like Edinburgh on the way, Newcastle, as it scoots on down, York, etc. And those are just some of the big cities I can just think of just coming down that song. But there will be other places where it will be used. There will be other towns and places along the way. But you need this energy infrastructure. You cannot escape building pylons. The march of the pylons is inevitable, because if you stop and or delay them, guess what? That green energy you could be having to help heat your home this winter, put the lights on, etc., will not be able to get to your home. You've got to build these pylons. And of course, one of the things that we've said, the Greens at the moment heavily trying to push this idea of, oh, we can underground these pylons. No, you can't. That causes other huge problems. Because, first of all, where are we going to dig to put these pylons? Because you can bet your bottom dollar, as the saying goes, that the Greens are immediately going to be out there saying, can't dig there. This is how the nimbyisms work. Get them to change tactic, complain about that thing, get them to kill the project. And yet, this huge amount of investment going to be so crucial. So I just want to read this because this is from an industry expert. He said the scale of this project, and this is of course referring to the new sort of pylon super energy highway, as it's being sort of dubbed. The scale of this project is absolutely massive. He said, as a country, we are trying to put as much of this new transmission as possible out at sea. But these cables do need to come ashore somewhere, and thus there now needs to be infrastructure in place to carry the power from the coast into people's homes. This means substations, pylons, and cables. It means more power lines and poles, and people don't seem prepared for the fact that this infrastructure is both very necessary and very visible. So you need this. You need this. And bear in mind, SSE, the company part responsible for this part in Scotland, according to them, has taken one of the biggest listening exercises in Scotland's history and has contacted over 300,000 people within 6 miles of the proposed route. So they have been listening. They have been listening to these people. But as the guy said there, if you want green energy, if you want this stuff, guess what? That means substations, pylons, wires, and cables. Very necessary infrastructure that will be very visible. And if you want to go forward and you want to use green energy, you want to do that, guess what? You've got to move that energy about where it's generated to where it's needed across the country. You cannot escape that fact. You cannot escape that reality. And I am really glad that we are getting, just Labour have given this the go ahead now, to have this super energy highway, as it's sort of being dubbed, being built. Bear in mind, this project has been put on the back burner by the previous government for years over worries about, shall we say, the NIMBYs, the anti people who have been putting this off. So I am very, very glad to see that Labour are building this. Is it going to cause some headaches? Absolutely. But guess what? You can't get out of not building this incredibly vital infrastructure. And I am flabbergasted by the number of people who stand up and, for one part, are all for going for net zero, getting all the green energy, etc., but then aren't for the incredibly, as to quote that guy who said there, the very necessary and very visible infrastructure that you need to be able to achieve that. So let me know what you think down below, but I think this is a very good step in the right direction. So as always, we'll see you all next time.